Tools. Love them, hate them, watch them on YouTube, on my channel apparently. We're here to talk about them because I'm known for not really using too many tools. I know, crazy, I'm the YouTuber who loves to experiment with new stuff, and I'm here telling you that I don't use that much, but honestly, my day-to-day workflow up until recently was kind of boring. I'm well known for not using much in terms of my Mac. I keep it very, very simple. I have a hard rule that when I go to an Apple store, I need to be able to buy a brand new computer and have it set up the way I like from scratch in under an hour, because you never know what happens and you need to be able to be productive. That said, I've been experimenting a bit more. Weird for me. I normally try to keep my setup pretty boring, but I like keeping up with what's going on. I like trying out new things, and honestly, I've been surprised how many of them stuck. And not just developer tools, by the way. This video is going to be a bit different. Normally when I put things on this channel, they're just focused on developers, and most of this will be, but I'm going to be lacing random non-dev tools throughout. We'll have dev tool, then not dev tool, then not dev tool, because every dev's also a non-dev sometimes, and I think all the things I show here are useful to a large number of people, be it a dev or not. If this goes well and you guys are interested, let me know, because I have a bunch of other things I want to talk about in a future video. But until then, let's dive into some of my new favorite tools that I've been using every day. First tool I want to talk about is Drizzle. It is a new ORM for full stack TypeScript devs. Well, really any TypeScript dev doing server-side stuff at all. You might be like, oh, haven't I heard of this before? Isn't that like Prisma? Well, yeah, mostly. Prisma's a big company that's been trying to turn their ORM into a business for a while. And as much as I love and respect what they've done, like they've really pushed the expectations of like the type safety in an ORM really far. Drizzle's done the same thing in a much more minimal and honestly more reliable package. I've been using Drizzle as my database of choice, well, database ORM of choice for all of my projects for over a year now. And it has proven to be a phenomenal choice. I'm very, very happy with what they built, even if their testimonial section suggests otherwise. Oh, they changed this. Drizzle's the tailwind of SQL. Sorry, Drizzle, you suck. I love Drizzle. I hate Drizzle. You get the idea. They're very aware and pretty ironic. Prisma in Bun was 1.4 megabytes per second. Drizzle's like 10. It's really fast. The syntax is great. It works in every environment. And there's a lot of little things they've been doing lately that have been nice. I'll show one of them because I've been using it a lot. If you saw my most recent tutorial, you might recognize this code base and you might have even tried this feature. I want to show for everybody else though. This is a traditional web project. I can show you what it looks like. It's just a gallery where I have a bunch of images. But if I want to make changes to this quickly, let's say I want to rename this. I could go write a bunch of code to do that. I could go hop in the SQL to do that. But instead, we're going to npm run db studio, which if I show you the command this runs, it is a very simple Drizzle Kit Studio. Drizzle Kit is the CLI that does a lot of the Drizzle work. It does your database migrations. It lets you run things like what I'm about to show you. Really cool tool. It comes part of the system. Second time's the charm. I already had it running. That's the only reason I got an error there. npm Drizzle Studio. Cool. Now it's up. You can go to the port that's specific to it, or you can just go to local Drizzle Studio. Really nice. And here is my entire database accessible via a UI. All my tables will be here if I have multiple. All these fields are here. We want to change this one to hello world.png. Save. Go back to my UI, and now it's been renamed. Super handy. Just having this built into your ORM is dope. They even have a Chrome extension that will embed this in things like your Planet Scale UI in the website, which is so handy. I've been really impressed with the Drizzle experience, from the studio to the migration systems to the actual syntax of doing your queries, which I can show you real quick. Is super, super handy. Go into my database queries and you see how simple this all is. db.delete images. This is the images table that you actually import from your database, where and equal images ID is equal to the ID that we passed. And also the user ID is equal to the user that is currently trying to do the deletion, so we can make sure they're authenticated. This syntax looks and honestly is a hell of a lot like SQL, because it is supposed to map almost as close to one-to-one to the SQL underneath as it can. So this is why I've been liking Drizzle. It's a really nice experience overall. If you haven't already tried it, highly recommend it. Next is an app that I'm a little scared to show, because if I show it wrong, you might see all of my emails, because I use Superhuman for all of my email. I've been using Superhuman for over a year now, and it is not for everybody. It is without question what they're calling it here, the fastest email experience ever made. It has been a phenomenal experience for me. Ignore all the AI crap. I hate that they're pushing that as hard. I've never used any of the AI features beyond it like sorting my emails for me. Superhuman's phenomenal because it is the fastest email experience. It's like Vim for your email. Really good hotkeys, really good behaviors, lots of subtle things I never would have thought of. So I can't just show any of my inboxes. So here is my optional inbox in one of my email accounts. there's a lot of nice things in here. Like I can navigate up and down with J and K, just like you would in a Vim code base. There's a lot of hotkeys for auto reminders. So you can set something to remind me in the future. You have a whole Superhuman command bar that has a ton of different options, templates, tons of useful stuff. I just want to show you one of the subtle things that I've never seen anyone else do. We all know how Command A works. We go to the top and we Command A. The thing they did differently that I've never seen is if you Command A from a certain point. So we're going to start at Thrasher. We'll Command A there. It only selects from there down. Such a subtle thing that I had never thought of before. But now that I've experienced Command A not selecting the entire page, but instead selecting from where you are down, I was like, oh shit, that's how it always should have worked. It's just obvious. And there's a lot of these subtle things that they did. Things like when you're sending an email, pressing a colon to start typing an emoji and having it autocomplete correctly. Things like the entire send system actually behaving, having meaningful templates and snippets that you can reuse, which I use for my investor emails every month. It's just so good. So many of these little things are done right, and it makes managing your email inbox better than it's ever been. It does cost money though, and it's not cheap. It is $30 a month. It's worth it. If you're the type of person that spends an hour or more in email every day, this is worth it for you. That is not everybody. If the thought of spending $30 a month on your email disgusts you, this is not a service for you. But if that's like, oh, whatever, A+, it is. Check out my link in the description. I somewhat recently convinced them to give me an affiliate link after begging for over a year. And if you use that, it gets a little cheaper for me, so I'd appreciate it. Anyways, that's enough about Superhuman. Check out their mobile app too. It's really good, but it is not for everyone. Someone asked, would I recommend it for casual email? No. Yeah, no. I would not recommend, like you can use Superhuman for casual email, but it is a business email for sure. One more super before we forget. This one's a dev tool. This is Supermaven. It is, without question, the fastest Copilot. I've seen a lot of things make these claims, and I didn't think I would care. And then I tried Supermaven, and suddenly I care a lot. I will say that I don't know how their free tier behaves because when I signed up, there was only the pro tier. So I actually haven't tried to see if the free tier is any good. But the pro tier is some of the best Copilot-like experiences I've ever had. It works in VS Code. You might have noticed I've had this here for a bit. When you open up a new code base, it actually trains on that specific code base. It updates the training every time you make a change. It basically takes little diffs from when you're changing stuff, and it uses those to optimize to make the next diffs better. My co-founder actually recently tried it, and the first thing he noticed is when he went to a code base to refactor the console logs, he made one change, and then it knew what change he wanted to make that point forward because it wasn't based on just all this old archaic knowledge. It was preferring the knowledge of the thing that he just changed. I saw this chat and I had to call it out. If you guys don't know Embed, she's one of those people that likes Vercel but doesn't use it because she wants to optimize every penny. So she doesn't spend money unless she has to. And she actually renewed the subscription for Supermaven because she likes it enough. So I've been surprised with it. I'll quickly show just how insane this autocomplete is. Let's do export async function rename image. Do you see how fast it's doing the autocomplete? Like it's every character. It automatically has it already. I pressed tab and it auto-filled this. Update images, set name, where, and yeah, it's smart. The fuck. And it does it that fast too. I'll just do it again for the sake of it. Did you see, as soon as I pressed enter on that autocomplete, press tab and it appears. None of this is edited. This is just the raw speed possible when you're using this stuff. It's nuts. I've never seen AI autocomplete for code this absurdly quick. It's really nice. And the recommendations might not be as deep. If I had some crazy function, traveling salesman, it can do it. But it's going to do it a little more generically, and it might not do it correctly. But when it's things related to your code base, like a Tailwind class set, or another message like rename images, or I guess message is the right word, or a function that you've already made similar things to, if it's related to your code base, this is going to kill it. I've been really impressed. So much so that we're currently figuring out what it looks like for me to invest in them and work with them longer term. I am loving Supermaven. Really cool stuff. Check it out if you haven't. Next one's going to be a little bit different. You might see this and assume it's for devs, or if you're a dev, you might see this and assume it's not. This is my Synology Disk Station DS1821 Plus. I was hesitant to get a NAS for a while. If you're not familiar with the concept, a NAS is network attached storage. It's a device that sits on your network that just holds a bunch of hard drives. Each of these slots is a hard drive slot for a big 3.5 inch disk. I was initially skeptical of Synology for a handful of reasons. It was expensive. It was closed source. It used a file system that I wasn't familiar with. It's a giant thing full of hard drives that I'm throwing in a closet. How good could this be? It has entirely changed my workflow, not just for content, but for a bunch of stuff. The Synology operating system is annoyingly good. Mine's on my local network. It's named Incel because it's my internal Vercel. Have to make my jokes. Let me sign in quick. Signed in. And here's my Synology. It is magic. Yes, this is just in my browser. We'll talk about my browser in a bit. My internal Vercel box is a life changer. It's so handy. The big thing that I use this for is managing all of my content. So I have my VODs Dropbox. Wait, Dropbox? Why do I have Dropbox here? We'll get to it. So I have my T3 store, which is a giant disk array. If I go to my storage manager, we can see how big. I actually have 2 volumes because when Synology sent me this, they sent me additional hard drives. We'll talk about that in a bit. But they sent me a bunch of 4 terabyte drives. I need more than 4 terabyte drives, though. I need much bigger. So I bought a bunch of 15 terabyte drives. I think these are 16. So I bought 4 16 terabyte drives, and I'm using those in a pool. There is so much cool stuff you can do with this. Like if I want to add 2 more drives because I'm running low on space, I can just go buy more and just plug them in and tell it, hey, by the way, add these to the pool. And it takes a bit to do it, but it actually does, which is huge. So handy. And yeah, you can see I only have 12 terabytes free because I've been using the hell out of this. What I use this for more than anything is just managing all of my VODs. So if I go to my T3 store, VODs, here's all of the videos I didn't want to archive other places, but I have my Dropbox. I have my family room because I'm abusing Dropbox's family tier. We go to video, we go to VODs, and here's all of my content. Magic. I know this seems not particularly big. When you combine it with the fact that I can access this on my local network via Finder, and I can just copy files to and from it on my 10 gig network, insane how useful this can be. And it makes it so much easier to move my assets around. The real magic, though, is this Cloud Sync plugin. I have this Cloud Sync plugin where I can sync folders to Dropbox and Google Drive automatically, and it goes both ways. So when I put something in there, it goes into the Dropbox. And when I put something in Dropbox, it appears on this box. So handy. And we aren't just limited to all this file stuff, by the way. If you guys are looking at this and be like, oh, but I don't have that many files, wait till you see all the server stuff you can do with it. You can have a full-on container manager for just running any image you want to run. If you want to run any Docker container, be it a dev thing, a local thing, whatever you want to do, here you go. Really easy to spin up and have it on your local network. It's nuts. Admittedly, not cheap, as I mentioned before. Take a look at Amazon. Yeah, these aren't cheap boxes, but neither are the hard drives you put in it. But man, if this is a thing you need, if you need to have real storage on your network, and you also want to be able to run like a random Minecraft server or some weird Docker image to do some weird shit, this is one of the most worthwhile purchases you can make. And while, yes, I am very lucky Synology sent me this, I have spent like $4,000 on upgrades for mine. So they saved me like a little under $2,000. So yes, thank you to Synology for sending it to me. You massively accelerated the speed at which I adopted this workflow. But goddamn, life-changing workflow. I am so happy I made the move to a Synology for so much of my work. For the next thing, I'm going back to my editor because this is a plugin. I'm not a big VS Code plugin guy. I don't have too many installed. I know I just talked about Supermaven and we're about to talk about another, but honestly, I try to keep my VS Code relatively minimal. So when I tell you that this tool is incredible, I hope you trust me on it. So here's a more complex one where I'm adding a fake field into this database. And if we go here, we see the usual TypeScript mess that you get when you get a TypeScript error. But if we scroll, we see a much nicer formatting here. No overload match this call. Overload 1 of 2. Here's this. This is the shape it expects. Gave the following error. Object literal may only specify known properties and fake field does not exist in this type. And here's the type for my database. So I like to think that is quite a bit more readable than this mess above. Like, anybody happen to think this text dump is more readable than this formatting? I would love if anybody in chat actually thinks this is better to let me know, because you're insane. This is obviously much better. So how am I getting so much better of an error? And why is this not just built into VS Code? Great questions all around. We actually get 2 links here too that I want to show. One is to TypeScript.tv that gives you a little more info on the specific type of error that you got, as well as TS Error Translator, which is a plugin, website, whatever you want to call it, that was made by Matt Pocock in order to try and translate your error into something a little more readable. The extension is Pretty TypeScript Errors. I actually have a whole video where I just freak out over how useful this is. Yoav's a phenomenal developer. He's been really involved in the community ever since I made that first video about it. It's phenomenal. I can't recommend this more highly. It's one of those things where I like use another program and I'm like, oh shit, why is this not what everyone uses? Why is this not like the default? The amount of crazy hacks he had to do to make this possible is insane. The big one is that in order to render like this inside of a tooltip, you can't just render text because it won't let you render in these shapes. So his hack is he's rendering all of this, all the syntax and everything inside of an SVG. And the SVG is rendering as an icon inside of the tooltip instead, which is the hack that he's done in order to get this to work in the first place. It's insane that he managed to make it work, but he did. And he even embedded my old video about it back in my old apartment. So you know how ancient this is. But I've been using it every day still. I highly recommend it. Give Pretty TS Errors a shot. Click the link in the description for the GitHub, and you can go find it on VS Code's extension marketplace as well. Speaking of things that should be built in, this is Rectangle. What is Rectangle? Well, I'm going to hold two keys. I'm going to hold Control and Option on my keyboard. And I'm going to press the left arrow. Now I'm going to press the right arrow. Now I'm going to press the right arrow again. It's bigger and smaller. It is magic having something where you can just resize your window however you want that quickly. So I have that there, Control Option left. I go find my code editor, Control Option right. And now I have a split view. So good. Just hotkeys, super simple. It's open source. You can support them by buying it in the Mac App Store, but it's a free and open source software if you just want to go download and install it yourself. It is a super minimal kind of tile management for Windows thing. As an old i3 Linux guy who used to do all of this at a system level, yeah, I used to use that type of stuff. But honestly, I found that Rectangle is more than enough to make me happy. I'm not the type that uses all the fancy multi-window shit either. You can see here, I just have my one workspace. And in order for this to be viable, tools like this make life so much better. And if you're not already familiar with this hotkey, because a surprising number of Mac devs aren't, Command Tab obviously switches between things. You have this little picker. Command tilde, the key right above Tab, lets you switch between programs within the same app. So if I have two VS Codes open, I just press Command tilde and it swaps between those. And when you combine Command Tab and Command tilde, as well as something like Rectangle, it's very easy to build the exact workspace you want. And I found that this is more than enough for me to not miss Linux that much. So if you're looking for something to control your workspace a bit better without going all in on the Linux i3 chaos of window management, Rectangle's a really good way to get most of the way there. Last dev tool of the video, although you want to stick around for the final thing, I promise, is PostHog. PostHog has recently become a sponsor of the channel, so know that going in. This does not count as one of my sponsored videos with them. I'm just talking about it because I genuinely really like it. I've been using it for all my products. To prove it, I'll tell you that I don't use anything from the feature flags right. So I don't use the feature flags, A/B testing surveys, data pipeline, or data warehouse. I'm just using the product analytics, the web analytics, and the session replay. And all three of these things are phenomenal and, really important, all of these things are open source. The whole GitHub repo for everything you need for PostHog is open source and self-hostable. So if they ever fail or go out of business or the pricing gets too high, you always have the option to go host it yourself. Really cool stuff. It is rare that these open source companies actually give you everything you need, much less make it somewhat trivial to go host it yourself. It's phenomenal. It's so useful. And I wish I started using it on more projects earlier because I've spent a lot of time doing different analytics tools and they've become my favorite by far. I already saw Sebastian commenting that PostHog's great. He only uses 5% of it, but it's great to track funnel conversion stats on his newsletter. Much better than ESPs and other solutions too. Sebastian's the guy who created This Week in React, which if you're not already familiar, is a newsletter you should probably be keeping an eye on, as well as Sebastian's Twitter. But yeah, if the person who runs the go-to React newsletter is saying that he's very happy with PostHog despite using almost none of it, probably a good sign. It is a phenomenal platform. It's a lot I find it's very Mixpanel influenced, but it's simpler. Not necessarily less capable, but pretty damn simple overall. Super easy to set up events, to attach it to your applications, use it with things like Next.js. Been a great experience overall. Hopping into my dashboard for the tutorials I was just filming. And here is my T3 Gallery tutorial. You can see my daily active users, which is refreshing now because I just opened it. You have your conversions. You have the ability to go create custom dashboards, custom insights. Everything's done through ClickHouse SQL. So you can write custom SQL commands too to generate your own things. We can go to product analytics and create an insight. And from here, you have tons of filtering, all the things you would need to generate really good data about the things that you're building and how they're being used. And I've been using this for all of the software that I've been building now for a bit over a year. It's a beautiful dashboard. It's super customizable. Everything can be configured. There's a couple things you can't do in terms of very specific filtered breakdowns. I wanted to create a normalized curve type chart of how many files users upload. So I could group them by the number of files. And it was capable of doing that on the SQL side, but not necessarily capable on the UI side at the time. That might have even changed since, because that was 8 or 9 months ago that I had tried. Regardless, phenomenal product. I've been liking it a lot, so much so that I hit them up until they agreed to sponsor some content, which is coming out soon. So keep an eye out for that, as well as the tutorial where I go really in depth on PostHog. And now for the final thing I want to talk about, the browser I've been doing this all in, Arc. I was skeptical at first. I was so skeptical that I tried it and then stopped using it after like 2 to 3 days and went back to Chrome. Then my co-founder went all in, and my co-founder does not normally go for tools like this. I was very skeptical, but if he was that into it, I figured I should give it a shot again. Specifically, I liked the idea of having these different profiles for my life, because I have my work stuff, I have my content stuff, I have my when I'm live, and I have this one that I just made for making tutorials and things. But having these different profiles that are that easy to switch between, it's just like there's hotkeys to switch between them super quick. The concept of tabs and how they work on the side here was weird to me initially, but I've grown to love it. The idea that anything below this line is ephemeral and will eventually get cleaned up, and everything above this line is like semi-permanent. The concept of bookmarks has been eradicated in favor of this hierarchy that I was really skeptical of, and I've grown to love it. I actually really, really like the way Arc navigates now. Having the sidebar that lets you full screen the page makes things obviously much more readable when I'm doing content, not having like browser tabs and everything everywhere. But overall, I'm just really happy with the workflow. Like navigating this browser is nice. It handles things like picture-in-picture better. It has really good ergonomics around things like your plugins and how they're all embedded in there. You have a hotkey to turn the tab bar on and off. And when you're doing things on localhost, it knows it's in dev mode, so it'll actually automatically not just show you the URL, but show all these other useful things like a quick hotkey for capturing an image in portrait mode, things like opening up the terminal in the console with one click there. It's surprisingly aware of what developers need and what everyone else needs. And it makes the change just by showing the localhost URL. It's actually been really handy to work with. I have been genuinely impressed with my experience overall with Arc. And if you're skeptical, I honestly recommend giving it a shot. I'm personally not using any of the AI paid features yet. I think I enabled them, but I'm not actually trying them at this point in time. One thing everybody always asks, how do I do the weird search thing? So if I search corgis, it goes to my default search engine, which is DuckDuckGo. But if I do !GI, it searches on Google Images. Or if I do !YT, it goes to YouTube. That's actually a feature built into DuckDuckGo, which is my search engine of choice for a ton of reasons, but I'll be honest, it's mostly this one. The ability to search wherever you want by just doing a little ! at the end, or wherever you want. It will just search the thing that shortcut's for. Honestly, now that I've gotten hooked on bangs from DuckDuckGo, I can't really use other search engines, so I use DuckDuckGo on my phone, my iPad, all my computers, and everything. One more thing about Arc that I guess is important. It is mostly Mac only right now. Working really hard on making it work on Windows. I don't know what the plan is for Linux, if there is any, but it is very much a browser meant for Mac users right now. So know that going in. Windows versions in early access, Linux version probably won't exist. And if it does, who knows how well supported it will be. But their focus is making the best browser for what they consider the best OS, which honestly, Mac's a reasonable choice. That's the tools that I've been using more and more every day. There's honestly a bunch more I want to talk about, but I needed to keep this video a little bit short so you guys would watch to the end. Speaking of which, let me know in the comments if you made it all the way here and if you're interested in more videos about the tools that I've been using. Until next time, peace nerds.